understand the purpose of a Toastmasters evaluation, greater awareness of the anatomy of an evaluation, create a formula, template, and roadmap to your own next evaluation, and feel more comfortable delivering an evaluation. Because so much of it is our own fears that come up when we're speaking in evaluation table topics or speakers. And then the purpose of an effective evaluation, why do we have effective evaluations, is to facilitate the effective communication between the speaker's ideas and the audience's comprehension. Many years ago in my speaking career, I would practice this speech and I would say the 3 main points I'm going to share are A, B, and C. And I can't wait to share with you the love of my A, B, and C. And my evaluations at the end of the night would be, Kristian, that was fabulous, good eye contact, great vocal variety, but I really love when you talked about X, Y, and Z. And it made me pause. That my intent was telling you about A, B, and C, but what the audience picked up was X, Y, and Z. They seemed to pick up something different that I wasn't sure or that I didn't intend to give to the audience. And we realized that what actually happens in communication is not really what I have to say, but it's what you interpret and you hear as an audience member. And we take that down to the test speaker and the audience when we're delivering the evaluation. What are they picking up on what we're having to say? And is it clear and to the point? And we're going to exercise that tonight. So first is a definition of evaluations. And the first is to make a judgment or to value something. And this is what we used to do in the old manuals, is if you had any evaluations like I might have gotten, there's, was the speaker a good speaker? What is their great eye contact? What's their vocal variety? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And usually a lot of those evaluations, all the 5s were circled, or all the 4s were circled with a big smiley face. Great job, Kristian. Nice going. And it doesn't teach us anything. It doesn't do any good for us. We don't learn anything. I scored okay on the evaluation, on the judgment of it, but I didn't really get any learning from that. And so we move on to the next portion of what the evaluations are. And the second definition is a coach or an auto coach. And a coach is a great metaphor because it's a bus that picks us up from one place and it delivers us to the next place. And that's exactly what we do as a coach here in Toastmasters. Because you're not so much an evaluator as you are a coach helping that person get to the next level of wherever they are in their path. There's a fun little diagram here that looks kind of like this. Up, over, up, over, up, over. And it continually goes up and up and up and up and up. In Toastmasters, we do something called skill stacking. And we practice how to first, with our icebreaker, get the words out. And stand up here, and our knees are knocking, and then I'm scared and I'm nervous, and I'm not sure. And that's the skill we're working on very first. Once we get used to that, then we can relax a little bit and say, oh, okay, great, now what's next? Now I'm a little more comfortable. I don't have so much anxiety. What's next? Well, we learn how to create the basics of a speech: introduction, a body, and a conclusion. 3 main points. Okay, I can do that. We level up a little bit. And then we take some time off, and then we level up a little bit. We take some time off, and we level up a little bit. And so each one of these level ups that we do is nerve-wracking, it's fearful. You want me to have vocal variety? You want me to yell? I can't yell, you're gonna laugh at me. So I'm gonna yell. Yeah, hey. And you figure out if that's enough. And your evaluator says, that's not enough, Kristian, I need you to yell. Okay, I'm gonna yell. No, you didn't really get the audience response that you want. I'm gonna yell! Woo! Okay, that was a little too much. And we did that from our evaluator, because our evaluator lets us know what is appropriate. We're on this pendulum, back and forth. And when we first start off as Toastmasters, we're not sure how much to rock the pendulum, back and forth. And then as we get more comfortable, as we start building up these skills here, that pendulum goes this way. Maybe we yell too much. So on our next speech, the pendulum comes back, and we yell just a little bit under that. And we make a little mental note, that's the right one, right there. That's right in the middle. That's exactly what we want to do. So the evaluation helps with those skill stacking. And it's because we have a coach. Who here knows of Michael Jordan? One of the famous GOATs, greatest of all times, famous basketball player. I love this story where he is 1993, 1994. He is in the playoffs, and his coach notices as he's making the layup, all of the defenders are right underneath the hoop, right? And so he's running up, and they're all there, they're blocking him. So his coach says, Mike, I've got a great idea. Why don't you take a few steps back and do your layup from the bottom of the key. It's a round thing in the round paint there. Well, that's about 10 feet. Okay, coach, I'll try it. Michael's a great athlete. Of course, so he runs, flies through the air, makes the layup, no problem. A few games later, the defenders see what's taking place, so they start crowding the bottom of the key. The coach says, Michael, I got an idea for you. Why don't you move back to the free throw line? Coach, that's like 15 feet. I don't know if I can do that. But Michael's a great athlete. He's practiced a few times from the free throw line, runs through, and lands the ball in the hoop. Defenders see what's going on. His coach says, we're going to stretch here a little bit. Michael, I want you to make a free throw from the top of, make a layup from the top of the key. Now we're at 21 feet. We're maybe here to the wall, up to the very top of the ceiling. Is that even humanly possible? Well, with practice and more practice and some belief from his coach, during one of the final games, he launches from the very top of the key all the way through, landing the ball into the hoop. And there's famous pictures on most of you, if you went to college and saw them in your college dorms, of Michael flying through the air like this with his defenders looking in awe. That was donned the Air Jordan. And now it's on sneakers, it's on shirts, it's on billboards, it's everywhere, Air Jordan. One, because of Michael, is an amazing athlete, but two is because he had a coach that saw something in him, that pushed his boundaries a little bit. And that's what I'm asking you to do as an evaluator, is to notice something in your clubmate that they don't see in themselves and push them a little bit to get to that point. Because as we skill stack here, right? Okay, icebreaker, cool, they're still coming back. That's wonderful. That's great. There's a little layoff period here where the person feels pretty good. Wow, I got through my icebreaker.
So our test speaker tonight is Pradeep Gandhi, who comes to us from North Valley Toastmasters. Pradeep has been a Toastmaster for about 2 years, 2+ years, and has a CC manual. The title of his speech is Extraordinary in the Ordinariness. Help me welcome Pradeep.
The choices we make today determine the life we lead tomorrow. Except sometimes you fail. Me, I fail hundreds of times all the time. I have stacks of failures. I'm going to share a couple of stacks today. Starting on a fresh page in a down economy, I send out a stack of resumes. I got a response. Last name is Gandhi, like the Mahatma. You should be doing talks, not jobs. First, public speaking terrifies me. It makes me go to bathroom. Second, I do need the job. I want to buy my Toyota Prius. And soon I had more rejection letters. As hard as I could try, I never found a job. My stack of rejection letters was my stack of failures, except due to some reason, like a horror movie, my stack of rejection letters was fatter than the stack of resumes I sent out. Coffee with a friend led me to Toastmasters. They said, hey, your last name is Gandhi, like the Mahatma. You should be good at talks, welcome. First, I'm terrified of public speaking. Second, I hope you guys have bathrooms. Thus began my Toastmasters journey with one hand in my pocket and the other in my ear. The sentence is full of filler words, terrified of table topics, eye contact would make me blank out. I could not finish my talks. I was at loss. This Gandhi, who could not find a job, could not do a 5 to 7 minute talk, and could not own a Toyota Prius. They said, keep getting up. I wanted to give up. That's when I was reminded of this lesson I learned from my childhood friend Sammy. His bike ride, and he's extraordinary in the ordinariness. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters guests, growing up, I had a friend, Sammy. He had a crippling, degenerating disease. He was not able to hold his body straight, wobbly all over the place. In the evenings, Sammy would always be at the window of his apartment, watching us kids ride our bikes up the block, down the block. because of his condition, he was not able to join. One day, Sammy walks out wearing a set of new white tennis shoes. His dad is with him, holding a bike with 2 front and 2 rear training wheels, a 6-wheel contraption. Dad helps Sammy out onto the bike, whispers something in his ear, kisses his forehead, goes back and stands at the window of his apartment. Sammy begins to bike. Half a minute he falls down. Dad does nothing. Sammy, alone, struggles to get up because of his condition and gets up. Half a minute more and he falls on the other side, this time skinning his knees, getting his first blemishes on his white shoes, first tears showing up in his eyes. Dad just watched Sammy lying down, did nothing. When I went to help, he said, "Hoy!" Sammy once again alone. Harder struggle this time to get up, and get up he did. That time, each time that day, for days, for weeks, Sammy kept falling down, getting up, falling down, getting up. A struggle for him each time. Is now saw his shoes telling a story of their own, of the bruises in his body. At times, Sammy would break down into sobs. Dad at the window would shed a tear of his own in quiet. And as if they were on a game plan. The dad never lifted a finger to help Sammy, and Sammy never gave up. Undeterred, unstoppable, undefeated, he kept showing up, falling down, getting up, falling down, getting up, falling down, getting up. And one Sunday morning, Sammy was rolling. He went all the way to the end of the block, returned all the way back without falling. Father and Dad erupted in loud celebrations. And I was speechless to finally get to know their game plan. The extraordinary in the ordinariness of getting up each time. That day, when I wanted to give up, I was reminded of this ordinary but extraordinary lesson I learned from Sam that Sunday morning. Keep getting up. And that I did, and achieved my own extraordinary results. Because I kept getting up, I now own my own successful business for the last 10 years. That is ordinary. Extraordinary, I own a Toyota Prius. Because I kept getting up, I'm able to finish my talks now. I even won a speech competition. Not first, not second, third place. Ordinary. Extraordinary, look at the size of the trophy. Fellow Toastmasters guests, truly extraordinary. Truly extraordinary. My friend Sammy is now a successful criminal justice attorney in Chicago. And he now rides bikes with 2 wheels. That was Sammy and me. What about you? Have you ever felt like giving up? Do you feel like giving up? Sammy's story's call to action for you, for me, for us, is to keep getting up. The choices we make today, plus the ordinariness of getting up each time, leads to an extraordinary tomorrow. Mr. Toastmaster.
About first place tonight. Very nice. Okay, so now we've got 3 evaluators that will come up one at a time, and they'll give a 2 to 3 minute evaluation of our Madam Timer with time them for 2 to 3 minutes. And then your job now is to watch the evaluators and see where they did well and however they're going to evaluate. And then we're also going to ask the group for 1 or 2 things that they can improve on as they continue on through their path of evaluation. Is there one of the evaluators who wants to go first? Right in the fire.
Lauren?
I'm sorry?
I was first.
You were first? And your name?
Lauren.
Lauren. Please tell me welcome Lauren.
Pro D, extraordinary in the ordinariness. I love the message, very powerful and way to just connect with the audience and draw us in. The choices that we make today determine the life that we live tomorrow. Again, very strong opening and engaging everyone. I love how you incorporated humor and how you use props. You created a lot of vivid imagery and a lot of repetition in your speech, which I thought was nice to reinforce your message. Next time, I would love to see you do some different things to really enhance your public speaking skills and take your speech to that next level. I'm really excited for you. So your vocal variety, I would say, you did a great job at being quiet at more of the subtle moments and getting louder. But today we have a great, huge audience, and I think you had a lot of great takeaways for the audience to hear, and so making sure that even the people way in the back can hear you. You're very loud, and even when you're soft, being loud enough so that everyone can hear every single part of the speech and really engage into the story. Also, working the room. You were very intentional for the most parts, but I felt like in the beginning you were a little bit more kind of talking to this side of the room, and I felt a little neglected in that corner. So just being mindful of engaging with everyone, especially if this is kind of a weird setup. So kind of being thoughtful about how you want to set that up maybe prior to coming on the stage and actually presenting your speech. And another thing I would say is slowing down and taking pauses. You had a lot of dramatic stories, and I love the way that they were carved together. Your structure was very sound, in my opinion. So being intentional and thoughtful with where you want to pause, just to have the audience maybe ponder some different things. And the body language and all of that, I think that you did really well in acting out each of the scenes, but the slower speaking would definitely help to add more effect. Overall, I love the ordinary but extraordinary message, and because you kept getting up, I know that you will continue to do that and definitely get that first place trophy. Thank you so much, Vivi.
Thank you so much for going first, very courageous. How about one or two things that Lauren did exceptionally well up here? She didn't do anything good up here? Wow. Next, I saw your hand first.
Assisi did a very good job enforcing the positive things that.
Tell her you did.
She did a good job.
You did a good job.
Lauren, you did an excellent job highlighting all the good things that Sati speak about in the speech, and the structure, pointing out different things that are very specific to the structure of the evaluation.
I liked how you showed up for me. Genuine, connected, smiling, one of us, not separate from us. And just your heart was out there, and that to me counts more than anything in the world. That means anything you say, I'll believe, because I know it's coming from you. Thank you.
Sir.
So, Lauren, I really like the energy that you brought in at the middle of your speech, where you started walking around and expressing yourself so much. And I think that really gave your evaluation a lot of life. Thank you.
Pretty.
Teachers teach by reading, and what you did great, Lauren, you spoke in a tone that even the last person was able to do.
Yes. So what we just saw here is exactly what takes place when we have an evaluator and a speech. When we don't really want to raise our hand and speak up because maybe my voice doesn't count, there's a repercussion to that. You have Lauren, who just went first, and were you thinking, man, I nailed it? Or were you thinking, as you were sitting down, that wasn't that great?
I was thinking that
That wasn't that great, right? So she was kind of in this, oh man, I had to go first. Why did I volunteer? Okay, whatever. And then who wants to say how wonderful she is? And it's dead silence. And she thinks, oh my gosh, it was as bad as I think it was. It's our job as evaluator to help that speaker out of that little slump that they're in and express to them directly how wonderful they are, for whatever reason, for getting up, for being first, for being expressive, for owning the stage. That brings it up. So now Lauren is in a great spot for now we can talk about a few things that you can do excellent next time. So what's one or two things that she can work on when she does her next evaluation? Room for improvement, yes. Yes.
It's unfair to have you do an evaluation with no prep time. So let me start with that, right? You did fabulously. Notice that Kristian mentioned the word because when you were starting to talk about the things that you like, the things that work. Put the word because and then give an explanation of why it worked for you. I just did it. I said your genuine manner really touched me, and that means that anything you said, I believed. So your credibility came from the way that you connected with me. If you had more time, I'm sure you could have done it. But because, reason.
Thank you. Yes.
I thought you did extremely well in articulating the positive feedback as well as areas to improve. That was very good, and your voice also carried through. I'm sitting at the back, so definitely I was able to hear you very well. But I thought what you could improve upon is if I were the speaker and I was listening to your feedback, it would resonate well with me if you kind of say, okay, I want to give you 3 points of positive feedback, 2 points of negative feedback, and kind of summarize it at the end, just in like short phrases maybe, not even sentences, so that everybody kind of understands it much better and it sits in their heads. That's it.
Thank you. Great example of a roadmap. Before we even go up, we know what we're going to say. We know that what we want to say fits into a construct, and we already know the construct, so I just now have to verbalize what I want to say inside of that construct. So having your own construct every single time you speak works. We do it all the time in Toastmasters. Introduction, body, conclusion. Every time we open our mouth, table topics, evaluation, or speech, there's an introduction, there's a body, hopefully 3 main points, and a conclusion. So very nice comments. Let's move on to our evaluator number 2, who is Lisa? Is that right, Lisa?
I think so.
Okay,
Yes.
Lisa.
Pratik, thank you very much for your moving speech. This is the second time I've had the pleasure of hearing it, so it's interesting to see the differences between the two. A few areas where your speech, extraordinary in the ordinariness, has been particularly effective. I think the relatability, you had mentioned in your speech about meeting a friend for coffee, in particular a Toastmaster, so that's something that really works well with the audience. The paces and pauses within your speech, I think, really helped out to emphasize the sort of the depth of your story with Sammy in particular. Some of the language that you used within your speech had interesting flow to it. For example, you were talking about getting up and falling down, and you repeated that, I think, more than once. So it had a sort of sing-songy nature that really, I think, brought us in and thought about what that really looks and feels like. As to a few things you might consider for the next delivery of the speech, you might think to weave in the story of Sammy a little bit earlier, because that's really, I think, the heart of the speech and really where you as a speaker, I think, light up as well when you're talking about that personal story. Another thing to consider is adding even more of the pauses and pacing within your speech. I think at one point you had stopped and sort of looked up into the right-hand corner of the room, and it was almost as if you were there thinking about the story with Sammy, and I think that added some depth. So you might even consider that at another point in the speech. One final area, speaking about your success as well as Sammy's at the end, and you had mentioned that he is in Chicago and you yourself had started a business, maybe talking about how your relationship is still interwoven together, because you're both doing great things, and of course you've had a previous relationship, and undoubtedly you still have one now, so what that really looks like. So thank you very much. Glad to hear you also have a Prius, and we look forward to seeing you another time.
Where did Lisa knock it out of the park?
She mentioned Prius.
You mentioned why? So yes, that's funny, but why? We wanted to deconstruct this. What was important about that?
Relatability.
Relatability and humor. There was humor at the very end. And so when there's humor, there's, oh wow, she's paying attention, she really likes me, and she's comfortable enough to land the joke. So yes.
And sorry, on the note of humor, in a way, it's a callback. Because I had mentioned her a Prius. So she did a callback which added to the humor. Very similar to the hand in the pocket and the ear kind of thing.
Exactly.
So very smart.
There you go. High level.
Yes.
There you go. Tell her, high level.
Lisa, very high level.
There you go. Yes, and everything.
Lisa, I think one of the things that you did particularly well was your use of very specific examples, like telling about how the falling down and standing up and falling down and standing up, that portion being called out, and specifically you saying why it was so effective, that it was a sing-song nature sort of speech. I think that was a really good point.
Great, thank you. One more. How about this side of the room? Yes, your voice matters. Something you loved about the speech. Yes?
I think it's been said, but I love how she ended. That part was actually
I love
amazing.
how you ended it.
I love Lisa, the end, the conclusion, you summarized very well. And you made that few more points about the videos was, to me, was the highlight.
Wonderful, thank you. How about one thing she can work on next time she gives an evaluation?
I know the eye contact is something you probably struggle with. You were looking at him a little bit in the book, and you tried to look here, but you didn't get enough attention here. And this room is really tough, to be honest, because I have the same issue. You've got this here. It's very difficult. But I think you can improve upon that. And it's actually interesting because I don't think he meant to be funny at the end, but it was funny, and I really like that. Because I know your style usually, and you don't usually incorporate jokes, but that was just, it worked. So good job for that.
Yes.
For contest purposes, it matters whether or not you include a summary at the end. And a summary can just be, I like da-da-da, and improvements in da-da-da. It can be very quick, and you were very structured, so it should have been easy to pull that out. If you leave the summary, there's like 15 points in the evaluation judges' forms that are gonna fly out the window. And I've seen that be the edge between a winner and a not-so-winner. So in the club setting, we love you anyway. Doesn't matter. I think you were effective for early evaluation.
I saw one more hand. Thank you, Carlos.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I had a common feedback for both Lisa as well as, sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Lauren.
I felt your feedback was very, it felt more of like a monologue to the person than to all of us. I felt that like in an evaluation speech, we could all like benefit from it. So it would help to maintain eye contact with the people and kind of address your audience as all of us rather than just a single person. Because I felt a little disconnected from both of Lisa and Lawrence.
Great, thank you. Yeah. That brings up a great point of anyone familiar with the radio station WIIFM? What's in it for me? The audience is always thinking, what's in it for me? And so some evaluators like to look just at the test speaker and give it directly to the test speaker. And it makes it kind of uncomfortable for the rest of the audience who's thinking, well, I'm here too, I'm listening, don't I get in on the conversation? Other evaluators ignore the test speaker and they say what wonderful things he did and where he's gonna go in the future. And the audience is kind of thinking, well, talk to him because he's the one who gave the speech. So we want to blend the two where we have Pradeep, wonderful job, what Pradeep did well was X, Y, and Z. Because you're always thinking, how can I learn from what Pradeep did next time I give my own speech? Pradeep is a shill for your own sense of where you're going in your speeches. And so as an evaluator, we want to know that we're having a cocktail party here, and we don't just talk to one person in the cocktail party, or we don't ignore one person in the cocktail party, but we talk to everybody in the room. So great comments. Wonderful. Okay, on to our ultimate evaluator tonight. Who is that? And your name, sir? Daewoo, everybody. Please come over to
right here. Try to be kind. So the speech was impressive, inspiring speech, and he started with a very humor, connecting with all of us, and that connection carried on to the end. He started humor, the same humor repeated at the end. So it's like poetry in terms of his presentation. So poetry flows from the beginning and body and end seemingly without any difficulties. So it was quite impressive in that sense. In terms of critical matters, I cannot find anything wrong with you. The only thing I can find is, suppose that this is a little more logical connection, and I was trying to get your speech at the same time. I was trying to get the whole sort of stories. So when I listen to stories, and I tend to forget what the flow was. I know this was prose-like speech, but at the same time, I wish I can see some logical connections from the beginning to the end. And then in terms of your voice, your movement was, I can't comment, it was exceptional. And again, your language, the repetition languages, and your connection to all of others has been exceptional. So I wish I can hear more of your speech in the future. Thank you.
What did you enjoy about Daewoo's evaluation? Yes.
He spoke from the heart.
You spoke from the heart.
Daewoo spoke from the heart without using much of your notes, and in part, that's what the interpretation came out. I heard an interpretation that was genuine and authentic, so it was very different from other evaluations. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes.
I like how you ended on a positive note. So you gave your constructive feedback, but you left the speaker on motivated and to give the next speech, because there were good things that he could remember in the end from the evaluation.
Very true. One more great comment about his performance. Yes.
I thought that he went there and marked himself like at the beginning, but given that his speech was pretty coherent and it was fluent and I think your speech was very fluent. You were very fluent and you were confident up there, and even though you rate yourself very low, I thought you did a pretty good, very good job.
Yeah, very true. Maybe right here. There we go. Okay, something to take Daewoo up to this level right here. What's one thing that he can improve on next time he gives a presentation?
I should have given a little more specifics, but I think I'm lacking in catching the specifics, and that's for my own criticism. I think other people may have some other things.
Okay. Good self-evaluation? Yes.
I really like it when an evaluator tells you why you do things. It's the because, right? You use this repetition and it made me remember extraordinary and ordinariness. Now, I won't be able to get that out of my head, right? Because now you've told the whole audience, oh. And then it's even better if they say, and that we call an anchor phrase, right? Because you used it like 4 times. And that's where you glue it into people's heads. And they'll walk out of the room and they'll go, that extraordinary and ordinariness, yeah. And they may not remember anything else, but they'll remember that. So I really like that, because I don't know all these labels. And when somebody gives me a label, it's like, oh, and then I share it with other people, so it helps, I think.
Good, thank you.
Since the comment was on the logic of the speech, perhaps that roadmap to help us follow your logic would tie it all together, because you have the content. And in addition, perhaps specific suggestions on how to make it more logical would also help him understand your feedback as well.
Very nice job for all of our evaluations. We're just about evaluation, if that's okay. Can we stay for about an extra 3 minutes? That's great, okay. Pradeep, what an amazing speech. Thank you so much for giving a speech today. Today I'm going to talk about 3 areas that Pradeep really knocked it out of the park, and 3 areas that you can improve on as you continue to mold this speech, hopefully for a competition someday. We'll see. Good luck to you, my friend. So first, you had a great pause at the start. You came up and you were very poised. You looked around the room, silence, and then you went into it. And why that's so important is because it allows command of the room. You're not nervous, you're not scared, you're very comfortable, and you make a good connection with every single person in the room. And we say, oh, okay, well, I'm ready to go on a 7-minute journey with this speaker because he has command of where he's going in his speech. The second area that was amazing was your wordplay. Sometimes I get up, I don't know if I want to give up. You had great little turn of phrases that just kind of tickle our brains, and that keeps us interested in your speech because we understand that it is a well-crafted speech, and you thought about the words that you want to use. It's project number 4 in the Competent Communication Manual, how to say it. You thought of alliteration, and that keeps us hooked up as much as possible. And lastly was the structure. It was very easy for me to follow, and when a structure is easy, the audience understands that there's a beginning of a speech, a middle of a speech, and an end of a speech. And you showed that somewhat here on stage, the beginning, the middle, and the end. And then you ended at the very center, which allows to ground us right here. The 3 areas that I think you can improve on as you move forward is first to have less sloppy fingers. You mentioned in your speech, I'm going to talk about a couple different things. And we want specifics. Are you going to talk about 1 thing, 2 things, 5 things, 7 things? So I'm going to tell you about 3 different areas and be very specific with what you're going to tell us. That helps us understand where you're moving along. Next is to stage the speech, meaning where does everything live? Where does the dad live, and where does the kid ride his bike? I saw a lot of this up and down, but maybe show us kind of as if we're watching a movie. And I'd love to see you role play the father lean down and give his son a kiss. Really show that so we can imagine what it's like for us watching the story as it unfolds. And you pointed up towards where you were watching everything that takes place. But if you were to show that, what it does is it creates a hologram for us. And the story unfolds. There's an introduction and a body, and then you move through the process of your speech, and then you come over here to where you won the title, which is great. But make this more of an area of a Toastmaster meeting, or wherever you're going to end up. Have it hologrammed in each section so we can follow subconsciously along. Because as Westerners, we read from left to right. So we want the beginning here, the middle of the story here, and the end of the story right here. And lastly is to slow the speech. I am notorious for speaking fast. And it's easy to do because we have so much to say and it shows exuberance in our message. But the audience is only picking up every other word. So slow down when you really want to make an emphasis. And that will help everyone, all of us, take it in as you really bend over and kiss the sun. And it has gravitas to that meaning. And what it does is it helps to juxtaposition your other emotion. I was so mad! Why? Why is his shoes dirty and the father's not out there? Right? The energy is up, the energy is down. And that really helps us understand what you're going through in that process. And then with some humor in there, it was amazing. Where's the bathroom? You ended on humor. You started with humor. I can't wait to see you compete with this speech. And hopefully you take it all the way to the world champion of public speaking. I know you have it in you. Very nice job. Okay, same drill. What did I do okay up here? What did I do well? Not everybody at once. So,
the specific demonstration on how to improve the holographing on the stage was extremely clear, extremely actionable, and if you wanted to start working on it tonight, you could. You know, you've given him some homework, and it was clear to the rest of us, and I think it educated the rest of us. So that was the strongest part for me, toward the end.
mm-hmm. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, similarly with what Carlos was saying, what you have done that's very unique that I haven't seen most evaluators do is like, you told a story within your evaluation speech. It was very clear, like easy to follow, but it was very like vivid in how, in my brain at least, I'm thinking about how Pradeep can like implement this into his speech and make it better. So I really thought that was very unique in how you were able to do that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Now I know there's a lot more comments that we can't get to because of time, so let's move on to something I can do better next time.
I think on this said it yourself that slow down. During the beginning of the workshop, I thought you were like racing. Maybe you're looking too much at the clock. Maybe either I don't know, cut the portion or slow down.
Perfect. Great. Great. Something I can improve on in the evaluation, but thank you for the whole thing. Yes.
I like your 3, 2, 1. Like if you could, because I heard 3 and I think more than 3 things, and then the wrap up at the end. Maybe even the 3 things, the 2 suggestions, and then the stretch goal, where you can really take it to the world champion public speaking.
Gotcha. And that is the format that Pathways currently uses, in a nutshell. Something that the speaker did well, something that they can improve on, 3, 2, 1, and then what's something that they can maybe work on and really stretch and have a stretch. So if you're going to use the Pathways format, which is great to use, think of those 3 options. Something that went well, something that they could improve on the next speech, and then where's something that they could go maybe 3 or 5 speeches down the way. So Toastmasters offers lots of different areas for us to have that format, to have that page when we're standing in front of the audience and wondering what to say. We have a format already written out. I want to thank you so much for attending tonight. Again, if you have any further questions, please reach out to me, call, email, LinkedIn, however so. I love evaluation. It is the cornerstone of Toastmasters. And it's really the connection that we have with each of our other members, encouraging them and showing them that we want the best for them and for the club. So it's a very nice job to everyone who participated.